Well, we've been up in the mountains.
Oh, no kidding. About the highest you can get.
Yeah, as much as 11,000 feet at sometimes, but never below 8,000 feet.
No.
And it kind of takes it right out of you.
I keep hoping those pine trees stay put.
No kidding.
Yeah. Stand there, guy.
There seems to be a tree in my way.
Well, look at them. I mean, some of them are falling
halfway
down.
over already. Well, even though the air is thin, it's sure beautiful.
Oh,
here.
it's wonderful. Look at the clear air.
Oh, it's incredible. And what's actually brought us up here is this.
Oh, a traffic jam?
A traffic jam. They call it the Gathering of Victorian Locomotives, and it certainly is that. It was planned for last year, but COVID and whatnot. Anyway, here we are.
Here it is.
It's been rescheduled, and they were originally planning to bring in 4 early style steam locomotives. It ended up being 5. Now, if you look closely, all 5 engines are in this shot.
It looks like 4, but one is hiding.
Yeah, the Glenbrook is behind the number 4 there. They're coupled together. There's 2 more locomotives here that you can't see at all. One is off to the left, and then there's a K27 back behind all of these. So there's actually 7 locomotives in this shot. I suppose you could say that these 2 engines are the stars.
I think so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. These are truly the Victorian locomotives, and the earliest locomotives here about 1870. This is the Glenbrook.
Yes, one of my favorites.
And we've seen it before at the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Carson City, but it's never been out on a railroad.
Oh, really?
Not since the restoration.
Wow.
So this is its first opportunity to actually pull a train.
That is so cool.
That's why they brought it here. It's an opportunity to really treat it as a locomotive. I love seeing the people.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
People say, why are you taking pictures of people? Because they're just as interesting as locomotives.
I looked out when they brought 168 in.
There's a lot of hard work that goes into running a locomotive.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And the older the locomotive, the more the work.
Yes.
Notice that the way you get wood into a wood-burning locomotive is you pick it up off the ground and hand it up to someone.
Oh, boy.
Because it all has to be carefully stacked. Here's 455. That's the K27
Right.
that we mentioned earlier. It's just in daily service here. It was restored just a few years ago.
These masks keep the smoke out of your lungs, too.
Yeah, they serve multiple purposes.
Right. It was strong with all of that coal smoke.
You know, there were people here from just flat everywhere. I ran into one guy from London.
Wow.
But everybody was shooting up video and stills and all kinds of stuff. Because, you know, how can you resist?
Oh, you can't. Look at that.
There's nothing more photogenic than a steam locomotive, and so everybody was here getting footage.
Right.
Their way X or Y. Would it be that they're getting some kind of publicity?
Now here's the aforementioned K27, number 455.
Right.
We actually came up here several years ago when they finished the restoration and rode the dinner train.
Right.
But this locomotive was being restored for many, many, many years, but they got it running.
It looks good.
Oh, man, and it runs really well. It's a larger, more modern engine than these others here for the Gathering of Victorian locomotives, but it's still very, very unique. Now, originally, the plan was to have 4 locomotives here, but at the last minute, number 20 decided to show up.
Isn't that great?
They just finished this restoration at the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden, Colorado, It too has never pulled a train. In fact, it's only been running now for a few months.
Oh, really?
And they've just been taking it around in circles on their little circle track up there and not pulling trains with it necessarily. So this will be its first outing on an actual railroad pulling a heavy train. Now you'll notice the tender's missing.
Right there, yes.
Yeah, they only had one trailer.
Oh,
Well, and Golden's not that far away.
right, and they brought it in.
Because they're here.
I saw the road walk there and I was impressed and I saw the camera. I was like, crap, I'm sorry.
No, I love to see people in the frame. Anyway, it was a few days missing, but then the tender showed up.
Yes.
It's always interesting to see a locomotive with the tender off. It's just not something that you typically see.
Except in toy trains, and they forget the tender.
They forget to put them on there, don't they?
They do.
Well, we didn't forget. Here's the tender.
There it is.
So after a few days, the trailer came back from Golden, Colorado with the tender. Didn't take that much time to get everything all coupled up and the hoses connected, and there it is.
There it is.
Rio Grande Southern number 20. You know, number 40 in Ely, Nevada, is the state locomotive of Nevada.
Right.
And if I had to pick a state locomotive for Colorado, it just might be number 20.
Oh, I could agree.
It's sort of similar to 40, isn't it?
It really is.
They're both 10-wheelers, and they're just 10-wheelers are just beautiful, and number 20 here is just classic. The locomotive was built by the Schenectady Locomotive Works. And boy, it was featured in a lot of movies and stuff back in the 1950s when it was actually running, but it hasn't run since.
Oh, wow.
And here it is.
There it is. I'm so happy.
Running perfectly and pulling heavy trains.
Yes.
The first thing they did is they lashed it up to all of these passenger cars and just took them empty down to Bighorn and back, just to make sure everything was going to work out.
That's neat.
And it worked out perfectly.
It worked out well, yes.
Now this is Rio Grande 315, a C18 configuration, consolidation. Notice they've renumbered it to 425
Oh, really?
and kind of backdated everything to make it look like it did when it was original and giving it back its original number just for the event.
Oh, I see.
Isn't that neat?
That's cool.
It's a beautiful, beautiful restoration, and was just finished up a little while ago. So it, too, is a fairly new locomotive. It was actually rebuilt by a volunteer group out of Silverton,
Okay.
but Durango and Silverton won't let them run it on their railroad,
Oh,
so they brought it here.
well, there you go.
Now, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out the difference between a C18 and a C19,
What's the difference?
where the connecting rod from the piston attaches.
Oh,
They said they get a smoother ride by attaching it to the third driver, and so they use those in passenger service. And speaking of passenger service, this is the passenger train
isn't that neat?
that locomotive will be pulling.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's it's all original from that same era.
Right. I just love the cars.
Oh, they're beautiful. And here's number 168.
Wasn't that in pieces the last time we saw it?
Yeah, and I think that was only like 2017.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all over the shop.
Yes, it was.
And they were inspecting the boiler, but needless to say, they have finished the restoration. It's another 10-wheeler, just like number 20. It's funny, there hasn't been a 10-wheeler on the narrow gauge for the longest time, and now suddenly there are two.
Oh, that's so cool.
Anyway, it's a T12 style engine and a very, very, very new restoration. And so here again, this will be sort of a shakedown for it. So the two engines are going to be double heading the passenger train
Oh, that will be fun.
to give it that little extra boost.
Right.
And these two passenger cars were also spread all over the shop
They sure were.
in about 2017. It's like, well, they've got a lot of work to do. Well, they've done a lot of work.
They certainly have.
And those two passenger cars are just absolutely gorgeous and about from that same era,
Right.
about 1880, 1890. Tin roofs,
Yes.
which I find really, really interesting, but just beautiful, beautiful restorations. And they actually finished those up a little while back. The Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec restore all of this equipment up here.
Right.
And this, the sleeping car 470, is their latest restoration.
That's beautiful.
They finished it up just hours before the event.
Right.
So the paint was almost still wet, but it's brand new, beautiful restoration of an original sleeping car. You don't see those. Now, one of the things about having wood-burning locomotives on the railroad, instead of just coal, you have to bring in wood.
Right. Oh, what a job.
And lots of it. They kept bringing in more and more loads of wood, and they've been spotting this stuff all along the railroad in gondolas.
Right.
Because they can only go, I don't know, 10 miles or something, and they need to reload wood.
Right.
And the way you get the wood into the locomotive is you pick it up off the ground and you set it in the locomotive. So that's what they're doing here. They're just dumping the wood on the ground because there's certainly no safe way to dump it in the locomotive. And
No.
anyway, it has to be stacked up.
It does. Wood does have to be stacked.
And there's another complication here.
Right.
There's a third fuel source,
Yes.
oil.
Oil.
After the fire on the Durango and Silverton, and for other reasons, both railroads have started converting their coal burners to oil burners, and the first one converted was 489.
Oh, really?
And they're converting another one as we speak. So they need to have oil up here. So the oil is stored in this tank car, and then when 489
Yeah.
needs fuel, they just bring it over here on this track and pump oil from the tank here with this pump into the locomotive.
I really hate to see them lose the coal.
Well, there's just something wonderful about the coal.
It is. There's the smell and the smoke.
And the idea that that was the original fuel source, but for a whole bunch of reasons, the railroads are converting to oil, and mostly just because of the shortage of coal,
Right.
but also the cinders and the fire problem. So anyway, they've rigged up this interesting fuel loading area here, and so far they're just running oil out of Antonito, and they're still running coal out of the Chama end.
It sure puts up quite a bit of smoke.
And it's acrid smoke.
Yes.
Ugh. Smells like a burning oil refinery. I suppose because it is.
Right. Kind of, yes.
And it also gave us a chance to connect with old friends. This is Earl Noob,
Right.
and locomotive engineer from the Cumbres Toltec from years back, and he was running the Eureka number 4. So anyway, for the next few weeks, we're going to be focusing entirely on this event
Right.
and these people and all the wonderful things that we did. And also we ran into a whole bunch of rail fans that we know who were taking pictures and video, and several of those have agreed to share.
Right.
And so that will also be an upcoming show sharing some of their stuff,
Right.
which is really spectacular. This is a Greg Hardy photograph. Anyway, it was exhausting,
It was.
but oh my heck, it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And so for the next, 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be showing video and fun things from this wonderful show, and just the amazing, wonderful, beautiful time that we had up here in the high mountains of Colorado. And you know, the mountains up here were really showing off for us too.
Oh, they were. The sunset, everything.
Even if there wasn't a railroad, it would be wonderful to come up here. Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, please pop over to the channel and take a look at everything. And if you're not a subscriber, you want to subscribe and be notified so that you can find all of these wonderful upcoming videos. And there's how you do it. Click the blue button.
Right.
Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Tuesday with something wonderful and collecting. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.